Hey guys, Bradley here with True Outdoors, and in today's video you're going to see something a little different, something I've never done before. But in this video I interviewed preacher and evangelist David Miller. If you never heard of him, an awesome guy. I recently got to meet him. He came to our church and was giving sermons. He gave a couple of sermons throughout the past few days, throughout the week. But anyway, he's a really great guy, preacher and evangelist. Is a part of Lion Upon Lion Ministries, and he's also an avid outdoorsman, and it's a huge inspiration. You know, he has to do all his hunting out of a wheelchair and stuff. But anyway, I got to interview him, and it was really fun to do, and I heard some great hunting stories in the gospel. So hope you all enjoyed the video. Stay tuned. Hey guys, Bradley here, and we have got our interview with our guest here, David Miller, and preacher, evangelist, and avid outdoorsman. So that's it?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so I got a few questions here. We'll start out here. How long have you been hunting, and just give a little bit of background.
Well, I grew up out in the country, Bradley, and I've always been a hunter, but it was in 1962 when I moved to Arkansas that I became a deer hunter. Where I grew up down in Mississippi, there weren't any deer. But I discovered that I had a real interest in chasing whitetails. And that's where I had my beginning, 1962. So I've been at it for a long time.
Alright, and next one here, what are your earliest hunting memories?
Well, I remember the very first deer I shot. It was a spike. And I shot him with an old 30-30 brush gun. And a couple of friends of mine were with me, and it was an awesome experience, taking your first deer.
So how old were you when you shot that?
I was 18 years old.
Okay, and is that kind of like when you first started really getting into hunting?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, next question here is, what species have you hunted?
Well, I've mostly been a deer hunter. Recently, I've begun to elk hunt. I've gone elk hunting the last 7 years, and I've been fortunate enough to kill 4 elk so far. As a matter of fact, just this month, on September the 4th, I killed a really nice 6x5 bull elk in Pie Town, New Mexico. I killed it with my crossbow. So anytime I kill one with a crossbow, it's a big deal.
Alright. And same kind of thing, which species is your favorite to hunt? So out of the deer or elk, which one's probably your
Well, I still enjoy hunting the whitetails the most.
Yeah.
But elk hunting is rising among my favorite things to do. I take my wife with me on the elk hunts. She doesn't deer hunt, but she likes to go out to New Mexico with me and sit in the blind. So that's becoming a real favorite thing to do.
Alright, let's see here. Probably what most of the people watching this are wondering, how do you hunt?
Well, now, that's a longer story. When I was 16 years old, I began to be affected by a rare form of muscular atrophy, and it began to affect my arms and legs. And so for over 35 years, I have not been able to lift a rifle. But I didn't want to stop hunting, so I would take 4 guns to the stand. And a friend of mine would pick me up over his shoulder and carry me up a ladder and set me on a swivel seat. And he had placed those guns across the tops of the 4 corners. And I had enough strength in my arms, I could pull the stock of the gun off that side of the corner, keep the forearm on the other side of the corner, and I could manage to shoot when the deer came by. And I hunted like that for 2 or 3 years, but muscular atrophy is progressive, so I would lose a little strength, and I dropped my rifle, and I shot a hole in the top of the deer stand. I said, I've got to make some adjustments, or I'm going to kill myself out here in the deer woods. So I began to develop an idea for building a swivel seat that would hold my gun for me. And I got an old tractor seat and a disc blade, and I welded a pipe to each one, and I just sat the seat down over the disc blade for a basic swivel stool. And I welded a pipe out from down below and turned it up, and about shoulder height I built a little vise that my gun sets down in, and I tighten up a steel band around it, and it holds my gun at shoulder height. It allows me to tilt it up and down and move it from side to side. And when I'd hear the dogs coming or hear some movement, I would turn the stool in that direction, and my gun was always right there in front of me. I still had enough strength in my arms. I could lift my hand up to the trigger and pull the trigger. And I hunted like that for a while, and was fortunate enough to be able to harvest some deer. But muscular atrophy is progressive, as I mentioned, and so after 2 or 3 years I wasn't able to move my legs enough to turn the stool around. And I've had buck deer walk up behind me and paw the ground and snort, and I wasn't able to get turned around to shoot them. So I said, I've got to make some adjustments, or I'm going to die of frustration. And so I began to develop an idea for automating that deer stand. I got me an electrical motor, and I mounted it to the disc blade, and I put a pulley around the pipe and built me a little canvas shroud that would enclose me, and then a little table right in front. And I mounted a toggle switch to that table, and I'd flip the switch, and the seat would slowly turn right or left with me in it, and my gun right there in front of me. And I'd ambush them when they came by. And I hunted like that for a while, and was fortunate enough to kill some deer. But I have a bit of a competitive streak. Do you have a competitive streak in you? I imagine so. And I wanted to be able to hunt different venues. I wanted to be able to get up in the air, because, as you know, often you're at a disadvantage hunting on the ground. So I've developed an idea for building what was the Rolls Royce of deer stands. I got me a trailing axle and some 3-inch angle iron and an electrical winch. And I built a stand that is portable. You can pull it behind the four-wheeler or the Jeep, and it was freestanding. You could detach it from the four-wheeler. It would stand on its own. And I'd sit down at ground level and push a button, and it would raise me up in the air 12 feet high. And then I'd push another button, and my seat would slowly and quietly turn right or left, and my gun was always right there in front of me. And I'd ambush them when they came by. And I hunted like that for several years. Was fortunate to get to hunt in some good venues, and I harvested several good deer. But life is an adjustment. I had to make some adjustments, and I began to hunt in the wheelchair. And I bought a 4-wheel drive wheelchair. It's the bad boy buggy that preceded what is now known as bad boy buggy. It has a motor on each of the 4 wheels, and it'll go places that a conventional chair like this cannot go. And I had a machinist friend of mine build a little apparatus that attaches to that chair, and it has a horizontal bar in front that I mount my gun to. It allows me to adjusted many different ways depending on the terrain where I'm hunting. You can move it up and down and side to side, and I hunt like that. Now I need to tell you that for the last 10 years or so, because of the muscular atrophy, I've not been able to lift my hand to the trigger. Now that puts a guy at a terrible disadvantage. You got to be able to get to the trigger. So here's what I did. I mounted a solenoid to the stock of my rifle and my crossbow. And I put a wire from the plunger of the solenoid out to the trigger. And I got power from the batteries in the wheelchair with a quick connect. And then I have a little board that sits in my lap, and it has a toggle switch in it. And I like to hunt by myself still. And so when Eric, whom you've met, who's my assistant, when I get in the blind and get situated, the last thing he does is he lifts my hand off the joystick and puts it over on that board. And if you'll notice, I still have a little bit of movement in my fingers. And he puts my fingers over the edge of that board, and I have enough power left to push the toggle switch. Now I might tell you that I've got the tension shaved down. It's a hair trigger, and it's got an extender on it so that it doesn't take much leverage to engage. And when I push the trigger, it actuates the solenoid, and it pulls the trigger for me. And that has worked rather well for me. I've been blessed of the Lord to be able to harvest some really good deer. A couple of years ago, with a crossbow, I killed an 8-point buck, which that by itself is a tremendous accomplishment for a guy like me. But this particular 8-point buck is 23 inches wide inside and scores 165 7/8. He is a monster for an 8-point. So I've been very blessed. My entire life has been blessed, Bradley. I became a Christian when I was 16 years old. The Lord Jesus came into my heart and saved me and turned my life around, gave me joy and happiness, gave me purpose for living, and a couple of years later called me to preach the unsearchable riches of Christ. And I've been doing that now, guess how many years? 52 years.
Okay, I was close.
I've been traveling all over this country preaching the gospel of Christ. And I've had the privilege of meeting so many fine people just like yourself and your family.
Alright, so next one is favorite hunting memories. So some of your favorite hunts.
All right.
There's a lot of them.
There are a lot of them. I'll give you this one. My son, Joshua, in August of 2003, was in an automobile accident. And we were at the hospital for 5 months. He has a C5 spinal cord injury, and he's paraplegic. And I hadn't gotten to go deer hunting because of that. But at last, Joshua had improved, and he and his mother insisted that I go over to the deer camp for a couple of days. And we were on a quality deer management program, and we needed to kill some more does and a couple of cull bucks. And I got over there. It was a beautiful, clear evening in January. It was cold, but not too cold. Early I saw 5 does come by, and I thought, I'm not going to shoot now and mess up my opportunity maybe to kill a good buck. So I let them walk. And about 4 o'clock, 3 other big does came by, and they were close. I thought, well, maybe I'll just shoot one of them in the neck, and she will just drop right here, and it won't cause a lot of commotion. I might still have an opportunity to kill a buck before dark. So I shot the one doe, and she dropped, and things settled down. But in a moment, I kind of made an adjustment like this in my chair, and I noticed that the action on my 270 Browning automatic rifle had locked up in the open position, and I couldn't get my hand up there to push it closed. And I had a cap on, a hunting cap, very similar to the one you have on. And I thought perhaps I could bump that the little handle on the action and cause it to close. So I leaned up real close and I did that number. And it knocked my hat way back, nearly fell off. And I kind of wallowed my head around against the stock of the gun and got my hat back in place. And I did that again. Same result. It didn't close. I almost knocked my hat. I did it 3 or 4 times. And then it dawned on me, what might someone think if they were passing by out here in the woods and saw this action going on? They'd think it's some kind of giant monster woodpecker out here hitting that action trying to close it. So I gave up on it. I thought it's not going to close, but it was an emotional experience for me. I was thinking about my son Josh and worried that he might never get to hunt again. And so I'd been praying, and I said, Lord, I thank you that Josh is better. I felt comfortable being gone a couple of days, and I thank you for allowing me to be out here. I've already seen 8 deer, and I've killed this one doe that I needed to kill. And Lord, if I see a big buck before dark, even though I can't shoot him, I'll just enjoy being out here. So I was trying to be grateful. After a while, 30, 40 minutes had passed by, and a small doe stepped out in my lane about 100 yards out the way. And she looked back a time or two, and I thought, now there's a buck coming. And sure enough, here came a real nice shooter buck. And he stepped out in the open, and he'd turn and look, and I was thinking, isn't this something? Here I am, first time I've gotten to go hunting. It's the end of the season, and I'm sitting here like Barney Fife. I've already shot my 1 bullet, and my action is locked up, and I can't shoot. And then I remembered what I had said in my prayer. I said, Lord, I'm grateful for the privilege of being here, and I've already killed this 1 deer and seen the others, and now I'm getting to see this nice bug, and it's an awesome experience. About that time I heard it clink, and I'd heard that so many times before, and I thought, man, that action closed. And I looked over, and sure enough, the action had closed. But now if you're familiar with an automatic rifle, you know that the action has got to slam close. It's got to close hard, or it still might not shoot. And I thought, well, you know, it probably didn't close tightly enough. Then it dawned on me, dummy, there's a way to find out. And so I just kind of leaned my shoulder to the stock and looked through the scope, and I pulled the trigger, and it shot and dropped that buck right there in his tracks. And then I was kind of overwhelmed because while I'm a Christian, I'm a Baptist preacher, I don't believe in miracles on demand. I didn't ask for a miracle. I had tried to be grateful to the Lord for the privilege of getting to hunt. But I'm convinced that the Lord, in His sovereign and good pleasure, just decided to bless me that day. And 30 minutes after that action had closed and I had failed in my attempts to close it, the Lord closed it and allowed me to kill that deer. I don't tell that story very often, but that's one of the most memorable hunts that I've ever had.
That's cool. So guys, this is the end of part 1. And hope you all enjoyed this part. And I'll have the next part out within the next week, hopefully. And second part's just as good as the first part. So I hope you enjoyed the first part, and I know you'll enjoy the second part. So thanks for watching. God bless. Please subscribe. Be sure to stay tuned for the next part.